let's move on to our next exciting session of the day, which is on the topic of emerging trends, alternative asset classes in Limelight. Let me now introduce our panel members. The session is moderated by Siddhart Goel, Senior Director and Head Research India for Colliers. Siddhart brings over 19 years of experience in the real estate sector in research, transaction management, consulting, and advisory services. A real estate industry veteran, Siddhart has led teams from the front to deliver industry-leading market insights and recommendations to accelerate the success of clients. Mr. Siddhart Goel, a very warm welcome to you. Let me now introduce our speakers of the session in an alphabetical order. We have with us today Mr. Amit Sarda, partner Simplex Infratechpark. He is also the executive committee member of Arrjavv Bengal, and under his leadership, Simplex Infratechpark, a part of Simplex Infra Group, is co-developing a tech park in the IT hub of Kolkata. Simplex Infrastructure has been closely associated with the country's infrastructure building with over 2,600 completed projects spanning almost all the gamut of construction industry. I also welcome Mr. Jain, Managing Director, Arrjavv. Jain brings a novel and international flavor to all the projects at the company, and he is member of the Executive Committee of Arrjavv Bengal and also heads the East Zone of Arrjavv National Youth Wing. Our next eminent panel member is Mr. Kaustuv, Managing Director, Business Solutions, Savills, India. Kaustuv brings along with him over 25 years of experience in the real estate. He is responsible for servicing multi-services clients and expanding the company's business across services and geographies. His experience is in advising clients on consulting, transactions, valuations, and project management assignments across India and parts of APAC. Our next eminent panel member, I welcome Mr. Manab, founder of Sree Balaji. Manab, a first-generation entrepreneur, has introduced Sree Balaji Panthanivas in the form of studio apartments and luxury flats with ultra-modern facilities in holiday destinations like Shantiniketan and Dwars, and now in Digha, Puri, and Raichur. Further, a micro-city at Sonarpur with 6,000 units for the masses on the outskirts of Kolkata is soon to be launched. So he has established the brand with a vision to make real estate affordable for middle-class people. Let me welcome our next panel member, Mr. Pratiik Jalan, Director, Jalan Builders. Prateek Jalan completed his graduation from Cardiff University in International Business Management and Diploma in Entrepreneurship from London School of Economics. He has developed multiple logistics parks, including Conclave Industrial Park, Amta Industrial Park, and with Bagla Industrial Park, he is giving a new face to warehousing sphere in Eastern India. Our next panel member, I welcome Mr. Sanjeev Mehra, Vice President, Quest Properties India Limited. Mr. Mehra has an intricate knowledge of retail, having built and operated 3 malls. Currently, he is leading the Quest Mall, the luxury retail debut of RPSG Group in Kolkata. He specializes in planning, development, and then operations as an end-to-end solution provider. Our next panel member joining this session is Mr. Varun Bagla, Director, Saltee Group. With prior experience of working as a property consultant at JDL Strategies, Queensland, Australia, Mr. Bagla is the second-generation entrepreneur and oversees every aspect of the business. He plans to mark the company's presence in hospitality, residential, and commercial projects across multiple cities. So this is our eminent panel that we have discussing this very topical issue of the times. I hand it over to our moderator of the session, Mr. Siddhart Goel. Please take over the proceedings.
Thank you, Sapna, for that wonderful introduction for all the panelists and myself. A very warm good afternoon to all the audience members who have joined us today, as well as to my esteemed panel. It goes without saying that, all of us, including myself, are really eager to listen to what views and, any kind of data, any kind of experiences that our esteemed panel would like to share. And especially given the fact that, our topic is very interesting one. I mean, looking at what alternative assets, what kind of future they offer, where are the opportunities? Because especially in current times, I think it's the need of the hour, where everyone's looking for new opportunities because markets are flush with a lot of funds. There has been some pain points in various sectors within the real estate sector. But by and large, everyone is looking, everyone is still pretty optimistic that there are opportunities in a market like India. And it's up to us to identify where those opportunities are and how everyone, whether it's a developer, whether it's an investor, an end user, occupiers, anyone who's associated with real estate, how they can make the most of it. So what we will do is actually split up the session into kind of two segments. The first segment, we will try and understand what happened in the last year from 2020 to currently, and what we're expecting will happen in the immediate future. And then we will take a little long-term view of what will happen in the next 3 to 5 years. So let me start off first with Kaustuv. Kaustuv, given your experience and your overview of whatever's happening in markets across India, what do you think especially has been happening in the commercial assets, whether it's commercial office, whether it's commercial IT, and also industrial parks, because these are in our language what we term as occupier services, because largely corporates take up these spaces, whether on lease or whether they buy them out. So how do you think these asset classes have fared in East India and vis-a-vis especially what's happened in India?
Thanks, Siddhart, and thank you all, for inviting me on this session. Is my voice clear?
Yes, it is.
So last year has been a bit of a washout, I would say, as an understatement. I mean, if I look at the corporate office demand, it went down from 55 million square feet in 2019 to about 30 million square feet. And I mean, this year is not looking too good as well, given the fact that we are in the midst of a second wave. And I've been talking to most corporate clients, and we've been trying to inquire with them as to when are they expecting to come back. And they were actually, they were hopeful. This was in February, that by second half they would start to see some activity happening. But now, given whatever was happening in the last 1 month, I think that even the second half looks pretty bleak. Now that's one side of the story, but the other side is the positive side, where you're looking at, say, the logistics side, and the logistics actually has grown tremendously in the last 1 year or so, where I would say that close to about 50 to 60 million square feet of logistics space has actually been delivered in the last 1 year. So there is a lot of action happening on the logistics, and especially on the east, the eastern board of India. Definitely, I think many of you on the panel would have already seen that the fact that the demand from the e-commerce is relentless. And I think that's going to continue. I think the other two things that I see emerging is, of course, data center, but I think a little bit we can discuss it further down the line. But otherwise, tech side, I think tech and corporate office is really a bit of a down. But I see logistics and would be able to take care of some of the bad news. Manufacturing, yes, we are seeing bits and pieces of it. I think Chennai has been able to significantly benefit from that. Some parts of Noida are able to see it, but it still is pretty much a logistics story of 2020.
Sure. So thank you for that. If I may, move on to basically to Sanjeev, because what I would like to do is also bring in the aspects of the other occupier classes, because typically what we've been seeing is that most of the sectors that are being spoken about are logistics, industrial, office, and even housing for that matter. Retail is a sector, and you also have a lot of experience on the hospitality background. What has happened in these asset classes in the last 1 year?
Thank you, and good afternoon, everybody. Of course, our sector is the bloodbath sector. So we have given up, I think, substantial earnings over the last year. Though it was looking good in the last 6 months, I would say till March end, we literally recovered nearly 70% of our sale for over 9 months, over a 9-month period, because the first 2-3 months literally were a washout. This has again put us back. I think, the whole gamut of the footfalls have plunged. nobody is going to come out. I don't see everything stabilizing until everybody gets the vaccination shot. I think the most important thing is the first 2 vaccination shots. We have failed somewhat in organizing this. And I expect that in the TG of the people who are going to visit malls per se, that TG group, I expect that everybody should be able to get their second shot by September. I expect another 3 to 4 weeks for the people's confidence to come back, that they can come out, etc. So I see a very difficult time for the next 5-6 months. We hope to get everything out and everybody going by October. That's my reading of the situation. I think across India, it's things were looking good, but we have acted irresponsibly, so we have to take that into account. I think the hospitality sector, mainly with food, there are 2 kinds of things. In shopping malls, whenever we look at it, there is the food court section. The food court section is completely linked to cinemas because that TG works in tandem. Restaurant business, we had got back to about 60-70%. It was very, very hopeful, even with all the pandemic rules, social distancing, etc. However, I think that is going to take a battering. As far as hospitality on the hotel side is concerned, personally, I got COVID in Goa. So I hold the hospitality sector personally responsible. But honestly, it has also showcased how badly we are under, our infrastructure is not, for 1.3 billion people, if you want to take a holiday, 55 lakh people turn up in Goa. I don't think, it's crazy that you have a coastline like ours. I think we can replicate 100 Phukets, but this is the fault which I was watching, and I continue to say that this is where the governments have failed us. And we have to look at things like retail and hospitality in one go. And 1.3 billion people. All of us are there.
Sorry, Taha, may I please request you to put your Taha Ansari, may I please request you to put yourself on mute?
So I think we have to employ the kind of people, the next generation, all of them. Where are we going to get employment? And I think these are the areas which are going to be the big employers. A shopping mall, I always say that show me one industry which employs 3,500 people. A shopping mall employs, at Quest we employed 3,000 something. When I was running South City, is about 5,000 odd people. So show me one factory which does that. So, the more places we create, I'm not going to say that there are going to be shopping malls on every road, but definitely I think these are huge people who are putting in huge money in infrastructure. And I think, the government has to now start thinking very, very seriously where they're going to be able to get employment and get people in jobs, because it's COVID today and it's going to be mouse-COVID something, or something is going to come up which is going to disrupt normal life. I think, we have to be a little bit more responsible how we look at employment.
Sure. So I think, Sanjeev, those are, excellent points that were made by you, because I remember one of the things that Prime Minister Modi mentioned in his early briefings last year is that he would wanted to encourage all Indians to visit domestically to generate more employment. He had made an earnest appeal to all of us, saying that instead of going abroad or doing anything else, the best way to support the economy is for all of us to do domestic tourism. Unfortunately, I think, like you said, we all need to be also responsible. What we've seen is that everyone has ended up either being in, flocking to Goa, or for domestic, for religious pilgrimage to Kumbh Mela. And these are things which have, events which have created even more of the situation that we're finding ourselves today. So hopefully better sense will prevail in all of us. And we will see that the hospitality industry, and especially like you also mentioned about the retail industry, I think that's an excellent point to make, that most of us are not aware of how many more people are employed behind the scenes in a shopping mall. Most of us only see just the security guards and the few people who are serving us at the stores. But there are so many more people who are actually supporting the entire operations of a mall, and how many families are getting impacted. So excellent points made by you. I'd also like to come, ask Amit basically to, make his points about what has been happening on the construction side. Because you've got exposure. I mean, as a company, you all are aware of what kind of how the construction for various asset classes has been impacted. And of course, the construction site is a direct generator again of employment and a lot of revenues. There are linkages to various other industries. So, it would be really interesting for us to understand what was the impact, because most of us remember these visuals of workers traveling back to their home places. But we also know that most developers in India were gearing up for the situation. They are trying to make, ensure that such repeats do not take place. But what has been your experience so far?
Good afternoon, everyone. I think if you actually look at the construction site problems, the problem was very different compared to when we compare Western India to Eastern India. Wherever we had a larger labor who were migrant laborers, the situation in that part of the country was very different to the part of the country where you had people working from close localities in the country. In Eastern India, we never had a lot of people who were migrant laborers as such. A lot of labor class emerged from neighboring states or within the state in India. So in Eastern India, I would say Western India or other parts of the country, it was very, very bad. I think last time when we had a lockdown, which was called immediately, and we suddenly had everybody migrating and trying to come back to their native villages. There was a lot of fear of COVID. Everybody wanted, this was a disease which actually spread from the bigger cities and the smaller towns were largely insulated out of the disease. And we had a lot of problems of people trying to move out from especially western, northern and southern part of the country. Eastern India, we largely did not have a lot of problem in terms of, while I would not say that people were not going back home, and those who were going back home were not coming back very early. So that was a problem. But this time now again, especially in Eastern India, as we are also in the midst of an election, so a lot of people are going back home to cast votes. They are finding it very difficult to come back to the sites. After that, everybody's wants to stay back at home and kind of weather the storm, and then they want to come back after a longer time. But as we all see, labors are very important, and we all know that real estate is the second large or the largest employer beyond after agriculture. So, we are all aware of that fact. So it is very important for us to get the whole construction going, the whole industry going. And it is not only the labor, it is not only the direct labor that we employ. A lot of indirect employment goes into every industry from real estate. So even if we postpone the construction for some point, it does have a cascading effect on the other industries also.
So Amit, just as a follow-up to this, like you mentioned that, okay, East India didn't see the kind of pain points that we saw happening in North and in West India, which is dependent a lot on migrant labor. But what changed in East India? Were there any changes? Either in terms of the methodology of planning, or are there any changes that are taking place in construction techniques, or the focus on certain asset classes? Because, for example, we've seen one of the things that's happening in the rest of India is that office developments, for example, the construction has slowed down. Okay, whereas in markets, especially in cities like Bangalore and Pune or Chennai, which are driven largely by end users, a lot more activity is now happening in residential projects because developers out there are focusing on completions. So have any of these kind of changes taken place, in Eastern India?
Eastern India was not very high on office buildings either ways. So we did not have a lot of supply of office buildings, especially of grade A office buildings. So even the market size is much smaller, if I were to put it, in Eastern India. So what has actually happened is that while residential is booming all across the country, and we are all trying to move into residential spaces with the interest rate, home loan rates of 6.75% is a big trigger when we talk about buying homes. We saw this similar kind of home loans in 2008, and we had a big boom at that point of time. So if you ask me for one of the biggest triggers which has led to home loan to home sales, I would put it as home loans, the rate of home loans, because India is a country where we are looking rentals being pegged for residential being pegged at about 3% of the asset value. And then if you get a home loan at 6.8, probably that is a trigger when the actual user feels that it is wiser to buy a home than to rent a home. Probably I think that is one reason why a lot of people have ended up actually buying homes. In terms of commercials, in terms of buildings, in terms of office space, obviously all across the country, a lot of people have moved from work to work from home. And like Mr. Kaustuv just said, and he summed it up, and a lot of people are not looking at coming back to offices very soon. I mean, earlier it was September. Now I think it might go beyond it may be delayed by 3 months. So obviously the demand for offices and IT was slightly slowed down. In IT, we've seen two kinds of demands. One is the software companies. They've switched over to work from home, but the data processing companies are still trying to come back to office because their clients don't want their data to go to various places. They want their data to be far more secure. So this is also a small change, but in terms of absorption for office, obviously, in terms of change of construction, largely, I think now once we start an office building, like if you were to look at an asset class that we are talking right now, and if I were to actually divide it into two categories, one is IT building and warehousing and industrial parks, if I were to put that in category A, and in category B, we could have the vacation homes, the second homes, or the senior citizen living. So in terms of construction, if we get into category A, as a developer, we need to finish it as fast as possible because these are largely rental models. So these are all models of financial discounting. So before we start a project which is in category A, we have to be very wise in terms of our leasability, and we need to check the market very soon. And once we get into it, you have to finish it. You just can't sit over it midway because financing the whole thing and the cost of financing would be very high. And even the customer confidence is at an all-time low if your building is not progressing very fast. So today, if we get into any of the A category assets, you must get in and finish it as fast as possible. There's a big change in construction technologies now. Even if you have clients, the clients want to come as of yesterday. While the building may be on the ground floor, they want to move in as of yesterday. So we have very little time that the lead time that the clients give us. In terms of category B category assets, we can obviously say that even the developer wants to develop it in phases, get his cash flow, let people come in, let people get a feel of the development. And that is not exactly, except RERA, it is not exactly a timeline driven. It's not really, you're really pressed for time because obviously the locations are slightly further away. You want to make it popular. You want to make it a destination. So I think we can broadly categorize into two parts.
Excellent points, Amit. Thank you very much. Moving on, if I can request Manab, if you can share that you all are very active on the second home markets and vacation homes. How did these fare? What have you seen that's happened in the last 12 months, 15 months actually to this?
Good. First of all, good afternoon, everyone. The second home, how it's fair, it's not like that. I think you should, that to change the question, how it's become more popular.
Okay.
So in my personal experience, I can share. In 2020, in last year, just 1 year back, the second home, especially in the eastern part of India, was not so popular, especially to the middle class section. Second home is the word is it seems like it's a product for HIG or HNI sectors. It's not for the mass. It seems like that. But I changed the product. I just prefix one word, that is affordable. So when I able to put that prefix word on second home, it's become a boom. During the past year lockdown, from the month of April to July, we found the largest volume of sales in my category. because I'm especially because in eastern part, you can say especially in Calcutta and Bengal, Sree Balaji is the only house we are offering second home in various destinations. And the destinations that is not like that. It's just within the city, maybe in Rajarhat, beyond Rajarhat, it's not like that. In all the destinations, there still people, they are dream destinations. Like you can see in Bengal, in Shantiniketan, that is the international famous destination. Then in Doers, in lap of Himalayas. So nobody ever thought of before. So that in lap of Himalayas, you can have your own home. So second home that in seaside, we can say it's a Digha, and then Puri. We're coming up in Bay of Gangas also in Raichur. So we found people, especially middle class people, it's become a very popular product to them. Not only for the COVID situation and all, because in current generation, if we see the young generation, the work from home and these cultures have become very famous. I think it's never going to stop for next 1 or 2 months. So work from home, this culture as is being generated, it's going to stay for a long. So working from home for a person for a year long, it's become very monotonous. If you want to change the taste, so you should have a one space that is safe. You need to have a safe space that is your own home. So you cannot move your home to one place to another. So you have to have your second home. The second home, it's not like that. As I said, the second home within a city, a second flat. It's not like that. It has to be a destination where your mind can feel the relaxation. Plus, you have your own home. So this particular combination, it works a lot. And we found, especially middle class people, they become so interested for the product. Even we found many buyers who never had any planning for buying any real estate product, but they forced to buy because of the product, that utility. It's not become a luxury product. It's become a utility to them. So it's during pandemic, the people understood very well, but it's always, there was a need, but there was no product of that kind of, and successfully we are doing so. We are keep on adding the destination. Very recently, we have added another destination that is Mayapur. So we are coming up in Mayapur also. So all these destinations, people have their own choice. Someone is they need to relax within the lap of nature. Someone is saying that people they want to some holy place, that is Mayapur in Bengal. So there is various destinations we are offering along with the same facilities and very affordable pricing. So this combination is working very good. People are really eager for a project, and we found now people in our all project, they're saying is how fast we can take it on occupancy. So in some of the project, we are running at least 1 year, 1 year faster. So we are going to, in some of our project in Doers, we are going to deliver the phase. During the lockdown also, considering the lockdown, we are giving them a 1 year first before delivery. Within this, about 22, I think 22 June or July was the delivery date. But within 21 December, we are going to give them a delivery. Because, all the products are sold out. People are very enthusiastic to take the position because they need to relax and they need to get out of the city pollutions and very affordable pricing. So this combination has works a lot.
Okay, excellent, Manab. I mean, it's quite heartening to actually see a developer say that someone is actually delivering projects ahead of timeline, because typically that's the biggest complaint that we hear from everyone in the industry. So excellent, congratulations on that. What I would also like to do ask you is, as a follow up, is that since you emphasize so much on second homes being very popular with a lot of middle class who are actually looking at these locations for also to work from, because that's something also which the central government actually is trying to encourage, is the work from anywhere concept. Are there any specific requirements that your clients, your customers are asking you? So for example, one of the things that Kaustuv will agree with me, is that one of the concerns that most employers have is that while to encourage employees to work from home is internet connectivity, telecommunications, the infrastructure which can support, which can help you create your office at home so that you can work. So it's work and education also for your children. So how are you all taking care of these things?
Yeah, that's correctly your point at this point. So currently we have tied up with a company, I'm not taking the name. So tied up with a company. So in all our project, they are making an optic fiber network, because this is a really become very important thing. People are going there. They're working not only for the working from home. There is some aged people. They are staying there. There's their son and daughter. They are staying in US, UK. So every time they are coordinating themselves online. So they need to have a good network system. And all the projects, especially in Pankani, but the projects are it's developed like a we say your home in a resort. So all the other facilities, amenities, infrastructure, there is club, there is a restaurant, swimming pool, and others. Every home, free home delivery service, everything is there. But as we make this product in some holiday destinations, so infrastructure-wise, the destinations are already developed. As we say in Digha, as we say in Doers, Shantiniketan, the infrastructure-wise as destinations are developed. But the thing is, as you say, that's good network system that was not available. That I can say. But in past year, we have tied up with the technology companies. They are making an entire complex with optic fiber connection so that everyone can enjoy the same thing. Because without internet, our life is now become a very dull things. So this is very important thing. We have already taken care of all those things. The rest, every other facilities, amenities is available. People are very happy to enjoy their second home. Another point I just want to mention that if you see that's comparing to other metro cities, especially in Calcutta, the average age of the resident is little higher, because all the young generation, they are going out for work. Their parents are staying here in Calcutta. So average age of residents are little higher. So that, the parents now, they are staying in a city in just, lockdown situation for a year long. It's become very monotonous for them.
Siddhart, I want to mention one thing that,
yes,
data is the new water. See, one must understand that I'm telling you experience of going to Goa after 25 years. The village panchayat has not allowed them to put the data. It's, what country are we living in here? We talk all this nonsense here. The village panchayat has decided that you are not going to allow somebody to get data, and you want tourism to come here. Correct. You must be you can't book a cab. The North Goa will not come to South Goa. Boss, this is a banana republic. I am telling you. I am fed up when I hear all these things about you want to make this. It's absolute nonsense. And data, that's water. You cannot do Arrogya Setu, all the Prime Minister wants you to do. You can't log on. You can't transfer money. It's ridiculous. These are taken out.
Definitely, you correctly pointed out the problem was there. So why we have been forced to tie up with a technology company. So we are making our own network within the complex, so that all our residents, so they can happily enjoy their stay. So excellent. As we are in the point that these staying in a the resident of Calcutta, their average age is little higher to comparing to other metros. So now we found many retired person, they are making their second home to their first home. They're converting the stay for a long. So we found for a month of 3 months, 6 months, people are staying in second home, and they are very comfortable. Because it's there is no pollution. It's a pollution-free staying, and if you see the COVID situation, the COVID fear and all, so especially on the cities areas. In urban,
Manab, I think on this note, I'd just like to bring in Varun, because since they specialize a lot on senior living, and they take care of, they have a number of projects. I would also like to bring in him to understand from his perspective, because I think all of us are in agreement that a lot of these homes, especially away from cities, which cater to specific target segments, those projects have been doing well. So Varun, if you can just share from your own experiences, how have you seen these residences move up or the demand move up for these?
Certainly. Firstly, very good evening to all the eminent dignitaries present today. And I must appreciate the previous session which took place because it was certainly very insightful. And I congratulate all the panelists who participated. Now, coming to the question you just posed, right? I think it's a very good thing that we are talking on the alternative asset classes because the one most important thing that it needs is awareness. What happens is the regular channels which are there for direct real estate, right? It helps give that boost. And in these alternate asset classes, because people are not even aware that what is the actual use and what is the actual purpose and how it actually achieves its objective, it's not, gaining that kind of ground that it should on a mass level, right? Now, I mean, obviously, every crisis brings an opportunity. And I mean, although unfortunate, I mean, health has become a very big factor. And if you see senior living communities, although it was not primarily about health, but mostly about a luxurious and comfortable retirement living, has now become like has taken a second seat, and health has taken the foremost importance. And I think it's not just amongst seniors, but also it has penetrated to their children because now even the children want the best for their parents. And that is why, I mean, senior living in today's day and age, being more than a luxury, is the need of the hour, right? And that is why more and more developers in different parts of the country need to bring that in, because research says that India's medical situation is so pathetic that if we don't create a buffer, senior living is basically a buffer from your normal residence to your medical care, like your extreme hospitals, right? And if we don't have this necessary buffer on mass level, then obviously the stress is going to be on hospitals. And the situation of the quality of life led by seniors is going to be derogatory. And we need to address this face on instead of shying away from it. See, nobody likes to talk about seniors. Everybody likes to do it from a safe distance. Nobody wants to get into, get their hands dirty in it. And I think that is not the right approach. Until and unless we are wholeheartedly dedicated towards it and really want to bring in the difference, I don't think these alternative asset classes will gain the kind of ground that it should in India. Because the direct real estate is overcrowded, right? And until and unless, obviously, since it's a new asset class and it's bringing in innovation, definitely it's very, it hits the eye and automatically it targets a specific audience. And so it's a very, it realizes value in a very short time. So in that sense, it's a big relief. But ultimately, I believe it needs to be adopted on a mass level. And for that, acceptance and awareness is the two most important things across the board, not just for senior living. And specifically for senior living, I believe that obviously seniors are the most vulnerable, not just because of the COVID, but otherwise as well. And what we also need to factor in is we all will come through a phase similar to what, retirements and retirees and seniors go through. So if we don't act, we are also going to suffer, right? And this is something people, ridicule as old age homes and this and that, but they don't realize that quality of life is equally important to this generation. Because in India, the entire generation, they, sacrificed their entire life, right? Because it was post-independence era, and they only wanted to, bring in the best opportunities for their children. So they never got to live their own life. And I don't think that's fair. They should also receive that fair opportunity. And during our career also, I mean, we're so busy, in our work and everything, we don't get to enjoy life. And I think retirement gives us the necessary time to actually indulge in those activities which we have put on hold for a long period of time. right? And obviously it gives us a window to share our experience, right? And I think that is why it's very important. And I'm very happy that we're discussing this topic. I'm very happy. During COVID and post-pandemic, I think I am very happy that Saltee ventured into senior living, and the Golden Mile has become not just a national phenomenon, but it has also become a movement, like an international movement. And I receive mails from different parts of the world wherein they are, I mean, with the actual planning of the project itself, they are very much impressed. And all the, the NRI Bengalis specifically, because we're in the state of West Bengal, I mean, they cannot wait to come and start living in my community. So I think that kind of, special feeling, that motivates me to go to work on a daily basis and give my utmost best, right? And I think somewhere during the pandemic, we have all realized that, business is not just about making money, but we also need to, sit down and also see that whether we are actually receiving the kind of satisfaction and if we are bringing in the necessary change through our development. We being in real estate industry have the golden opportunity to actually change, bring in the real change. I think we depend a lot on our politicians. And frankly speaking, we need to stop doing that because they are only going to disappoint us. No matter which party comes in, which party does not, they're only going to disappoint us. Until and unless we take matters into our own hands and we bring in the real change, right? I don't think it's going to actually bring in that kind of change that we need on a mass level.
Sure.
Now, also one more very important thing I would like to bring in over here is India has a research says that India has a demand of more than 50,000 senior living beds as on date. And the supply is only about 4,000 to 5,000. So you can see the deficit. And what majority of the people don't understand from the business side of the thing is they think it's not lucrative. But I want to bring this forward that those senior citizens, right, who have worked hard in their career, who have a good amount of savings, good amount of deposits, they are willing to spend that money if they get what they deserve. They don't want to be duped. So transparency, honesty, right? And if what they want, you're going to provide them, then this is a very lucrative business. And I think there's also another approach wherein people think that, we are milking money out of the vulnerability. Well, I mean, this is a perspective, but I believe it to be a very pessimistic perspective. Because if we keep on thinking like this, their quality of life is going to remain the same. Nobody is going to take the initiative of actually bringing in the change. And I have obviously studied multiple business models, and it is my impression that when you don't charge and when you don't make the necessary profit, right, you lose the incentive. When you lose the incentive, the quality of the service and the quality of what you're providing automatically deteriorates. And when the seniors are not getting that kind of quality, the entire purpose of senior living community is getting defeated because they're specifically coming in for that kind of quality. When people have the necessary financial resources, they can make adequate arrangements in their own home. But they don't want to take that hassle. And when
Varun, I think you made some excellent points out here because, it has been our experience is that for most developers pan-India, I mean, I'm not sticking to any particular this thing, but for most developers, especially housing developers, senior citizens is an afterthought. It's just a market segmentation where they look at because certain units are not getting sold, they then start targeting particular, the senior citizens. But I think you made some very valuable points out here in terms of how the assets, the project should be designed for them. It should cater to their needs. And yes, it's also important to make money in the project because you have to ensure that these services are delivered. So thank you very much. Those were excellent points. I'd just like to also bring in, Harsh out here. Harsh, the other alternate asset classes, I mean, Kaustuv and even Amit, Sarda did touch on them. But can you get into a little more specifics, because you all have a lot of experience in warehousing and industrial park projects. What have we seen? Because especially in the East, because there is enough literature saying that these were basically logistics and industrial parks were the sunshine industry in the last 1 year. But what has your own experience been?
Thank you, Siddhart. Good evening, everyone. As far as 2020 is concerned, see, we have been seeing a consistent surge in demand from last few years in warehousing. As far as 2020 was concerned, when the pandemic started, we had a few. In general, what I experienced is that when the pandemic started, there were a lot of warehousing coming up. Even we were doing some warehousing, and there was a lot of demand. But then there was lockdown, and this whole scenario, and everything was blank. All of us, we didn't know what's going to happen. How it's going to turn around, and what's going to happen after the lockdown and after the pandemic. We never imagined that's going to go so long. We had no clue at that time. So I was also scared that time, and we realized that maybe even this will see a dip in demand, or what's going to happen after the BTS that we were making. However, what we saw is, we all know that there was a big surge in online demand. And although warehousing is not secular to any particular market, but I think there is a little tilt in the demand towards the online industry, towards need of warehousing. So when the lockdown was over and things restarted, I personally, from my experience, see, I was thinking there will be new renegotiations, or there will be some dropouts with the agreements, and we had a big. Personally, sharing my experience, that what we had done compared to what we had done, we were doing one of the biggest single unit warehousing that time, built to suit, and some smaller ones. But due to this surge and due to this online demand and this whole thing, and now the need of warehousing, organized warehousing, is consistent. There has been some hiccups, but I think in future this go down, and storage spaces is not gonna work. We need to get into organized warehousing, and big companies are looking for that. And things turned around, I think, and in the second half of 2020, we again, started to experience more interest in different players. They were showing interest. They were. I rather feel that we are moving towards a demand of little larger spaces than compared to smaller spaces. We had thought that, okay, but even like not only the multinational companies, the bigger companies, but even the national big players, they are also wanting their supply chain to be leaner. I think it's the hub and spoke model that they're looking at, and they want a centralized system, processing system, where they want bigger spaces, consolidate everything there. So I feel that warehousing demand, there was some hiccup, but I think it's been doing well. It's been a savior for us. It's been doing well. There's a lot of demand, and I think it's going to stay like that in the future. I mean, I see a pandemic or not. I mean, we are seeing the second wave right now. Again, I see a few months, which I think Amit ji stated that it's going to be next 6 months, going to be very difficult. So of course it will be, but I think this is going to stay after this is over. This is for the next 4 or 5 years. I think there should be a good Blackstone. I read somewhere today that Blackstone are looking at a big investment, and many other companies, international players, are looking at big investments, particularly in warehousing. So I feel that this is something which is of the future, and it should work. It should do well, I think.
Excellent. So, just in continuation with that, Pratiik, if since you also have a lot of experience in this particular asset class, if you could share, where do you think are the, opportunities? I mean, is it more on warehousing? Is it in industrial parks, or is it in certain particular locations, or catering to particular clients? Whether, for example, is it the e-commerce sector, or is it particularly some kind of type of manufacturing? where do you think the opportunities are for warehousing and industrial parks? Sorry, Pratiik, we can't hear you. No. Sorry, we still can't hear you, Pratiik. Still, sorry. Anyone else can hear him?
Pratiik, maybe if you can remove
No,
the
cannot hear
earphones.
him. Cannot hear him.
Yeah, Pratiik, if you can
Yeah,
remove
if you
your
can
mic.
unplug the earphones, then probably.
No, Pratiik.
Nothing.
I would suggest, Pratiik, if you can shut off the Bluetooth
if you can relog in till then, we'll just move on. If you can just rejoin the call again. So we'll just move on till Pratiik can relog and we can get back into this thing. If I can possibly bring in Sanjeev again. You had some very interesting points. Okay, sorry, he's on a call. Okay, so Amit, can we get back to you? And if you can share with us that, in terms of the construction sector, what do you think needs to be done further to incentivize the private sector so that we can develop the entire urban infrastructure, whether it's specific projects, whether it's the supporting infrastructure? What needs to be done to by the government to incentivize the private sector further?
I think in India now we've really moved ahead and we've actually come into a way by which the infrastructure has to be built. Today we are building the largest road network at the fastest pace probably in the world. So every day we hear about different records being broken and kilometers being laid in a particular day. So obviously we've evolved hugely from where we were about 8 to 10 years ago. Now I think there are two larger aspects that is needed. One is clearances and along with land. One of the biggest problems that we face is that the project goes forward and then we get stuck because of land midway. So one is land and clearances together, and along with that what we need is a low cost of capital. As we were to build the infrastructure for the country, everybody, it is not only when the infrastructure is ready that we get low cost of capital or we get pension funds to come and buy those building, but we also need to inject low cost of capital even at the time of making the infrastructure, which will reduce the cost and increase the speed. With low cost, I think it is also availability of capital, which is a challenge at times. So both the things are very, very important.
Excellent. Okay, if I can just request everyone, in in the interest of time, if we can just quickly start off, possibly with Sanjeev. Very quickly in just 2 minutes, if you can tell us what do you think is the future for the retail sector? What can we expect? I mean, is omni-channel retail the way forward? What is it that you think will happen in the next 3 to 5 years?
I mean, we've always said it that we have to embrace what is coming. I think technology is the future. Is everyone's going to live through their mobile phone. I don't think that running down, retail is not played in the sphere of one thing. There are three things which retail plays into. You either play into an experience, you play into a convenience, or you play into a price. Now, humans will always want to congregate, meet. I mean, in the end of the day, whatever Zoom calls we do, we cannot have a whiskey with each other and have a drink and enjoy a laugh sitting on a Zoom call. That house party thing, it's all rubbish. In the end of the day, as humans, we need to interact. We want to have a few laughs. Amit would like to kiss a few girls. I would like to have a few friends, and that's how we meet. I mean, humans, we are a social animal. So I don't think the whole concept of a mall or restaurants are going to go away. However, I think life is going to become a lot more easier for people who want to buy things which are repetitive. You have seen today that your holidays, you don't need travel agents. Now, again, travel agents coming back because people need experiences. So each genre will decide how things move. And in retail, I find that, we are going to evolve at the same manner that, technology is going to expedite this too. So I do see that what the government needs to do is to stop taxing alcohol and petrol. We start, opening up and let people, do not be a speed breaker. Indians, funnily enough, we are all in infrastructure, and Amit will bear me out on this. Every time we build something, we put a speed breaker. So if you come near my house in Yolipur, at every crossing, I think Mr. Parekh, if he's here, this is really for him. At every juncture where four roads meet, they made speed breakers. These are not things which happen globally. There is a global set norms of how you do things. We find some guy who's going to come up with some crazy idea to find a solution, and he puts these stupid things as a solution. I think these are very, very important. They're global standards. We need to follow that. Somebody's already thought these things through. We need to implement that. I think government should get out of the business of business, and the government should be in the business of governing. So I think if we disconnect the two things, I think, the future is going to be bright. Otherwise, we are just going to remain a banana republic and panchayats deciding if you're going to get access to Wi-Fi. That's all.
Sure, thanks. So Pratiik, since you're back, welcome back. Just quickly, in the interest of time, what do you think is the future for the top opportunities within the industrial and warehousing parks? What can we expect?
Yeah, hi Siddhart. Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Yeah, thank you. Siddhart, I would say that industrial and warehousing sector both have been catching eye since quite some time, especially in the last 2-3 years, when we've had a surge in demands, and we've also had a lot of intent coming in from institutions and HNIs. So in terms of opportunities, I think warehousing is a market which is already set. So I mean, it is a growing market, as even Harsh mentioned, that the requirements are becoming bigger because people are consolidating their requirements. The pandemic, the e-com has taken a good surge in requirements. So warehousing is something which is already happening, but I think there's a good opportunity in requirements for industrial as well. If you see the Western Indian market and the North Indian market, you'll actually realize that a lot of people actually build and lease spaces to industries. So what happens is this way, the capital investment, which is one of the biggest investment in any kind of industry, that becomes much flexible for any new startup, any new company would like to start doing manufacturing. And if you see East India is one of the most important markets. I mean, geographically, we are very well located. We have one of the best ports, best connectivities, especially with the Eastern countries. If you take China, or if you take Southeast Asia, we are very well connected to all the manufacturing cities and manufacturing countries. So apart from warehousing, industrial should also create a lot of traction. It should see a lot of investments in future. Investments would be coming from all kind of investors. I wouldn't classify that only institutional players would be the ones who would be doing investments. They are basically the ones who will actually drive the market, because they will always like to go for bigger developments. They always want to acquire bigger assets, but there are a lot of requirements for smaller spaces, smaller assets as well. That is the area where a lot of HNIs and a lot of local investors are going to play a major role, because the liquidity is required. It's a capital intensive market. You need to buy lands. You have to construct warehouses, and it has a lead time of almost 12 to 15 months. So I think across leasing, industrial and warehousing both have a very bright future. And I mean, after the pandemic, I think it should start taking a good role.
Thanks, excellent, Pratiik. Um, Kaustuv, you've been hearing, you and I both have been hearing what everyone's been sharing. If I can just get you to say, what do you think are the two asset classes, these alternate asset classes, which you think have a bright future, considering what we've heard so far and whatever you've been seeing?
Sure.
What is it that you would recommend?
Yeah, mine is response is going to be slightly different. One is data centers. Just a quick,
Sure.
In terms of internet users, India has as many internet users as Europe. In terms of data center capacity, we have less than 1/10 of Europe's data center capacity. That's the kind of potential. And clearly, if you see that while a lot of data centers are concentrated in around Mumbai and Chennai because of the undersea cable, there is hinterland capacity as well. In a place like Calcutta, you just have two data center operators, STT and Sree. Okay, there are a whole bunch of others who can come in. There can be play by operators, there can be play by investors, and there can be play by developers. Data centers clearly something, and we ourselves started out our data center practice with either Jain, because we see that as a potential. Clearly, that is where the future. And if I take a lot of what you all have talked about, that data is the water. Frankly, you need to know where the water is going to come from. Okay, clean water. Okay, that's one. The second part, and which was also topical today because Robert Pickers has picked up some stake from HDFC on one of the student housing. Okay, student housing is the next thing which I think is going to develop on a pan-India basis. Okay, and there is a lot of investments happening in that, and there's activity in that. Yes, the people are still to be able to crack the operational side of it, but there's enough interest on student housing to see that there is going to be some action. And clearly today, given what we are going through now, people are definitely going to be making sure that they have their children going to safe, secure environments. So these are broadly the two things which I think we should see potential happening. And frankly, in West Bengal, where with so much of educational, education and cultural background, I think student housing would definitely be good. These are the two things. Data center, student housing, I think is what I would go for.
Thank you, Kaustuv. I think that those were excellent points because these are two asset classes. I mean, that's what I think most of our audience would be expecting us to also highlight where the future opportunities are. And these are topics which I think there is now enough literature available within India. All consulting companies like yourself, Savills as well as Colliers are focusing on these. So there is literature available. And like we rightly pointed out, these are the future, the asset classes that internationally, a lot of investors are also looking at. And India does have the right mix. Yes, Varun.
I would also like to add co-working spaces. I think from core commercial, I think post-pandemic, we are going to shift to co-working spaces more. I mean, there's going to be more in co-working spaces than in core commercial.
No, Varun, I think an excellent point made. I had asked Kaustuv for 2, so that's why he didn't give 3. No. But I'm glad that you added that. Again, a very relevant point. Co-working or flexible workspaces, as they're now also being called, do hold a huge potential. In fact, we ourselves have been saying that a lot of the corporate clients are looking at taking up flexible workspaces, leasing in that for this year and possibly for the next, until they're sure that the situation has normalized. They won't be forced into any more lockdowns. They can then plan for further growth. Now, whether it's a hub and spoke model, whether it's decentralization, decongestion, whatever the terms that you like to use, but before they actually take up leases on, the 3 to 6, 9 years leases that they take up, most of them will probably focus more on getting their employees into flexible workspaces. So that is a very relevant point that you made. I'd just quickly like to summarize.
Also, with regards to hospitality and retail, I would just like to add one thing. I think these would turn more into experience centers. Something which cannot be, given to end users while they are at their own residences. It needs to have that push that you will only get this if you come to, our retail malls, if you come to our food outlets. And I think those things are also very important. They're going to convert to experience centers.
I agree. So I think that was a point that Sanjeev was also making, is that so this will also be included as part of a synopsis of, a wrap up of summarization of whatever we've discussed, is that Sanjeev actually had pointed out this out and saying that all of us, whichever asset classes it is, whichever business it is, we do need to embrace technology as the way forward. And, like you pointed out and what he had said before, experiences will count more. I mean, business will happen whether you do online shopping or whether you walk into a store or whether you order online and then walk into a store to collect. So you have omni-channel retailing. But I think what will be the most important thing is, I think we're all in agreement, is that experiences. Because that's something that even Manab was pointing out, that even when you're looking at whether you call them second homes, whether you call them vacations homes, but the fact is that all of these are also, they are focused on experiences, and that's why they need to be designed in that particular way. So, in terms of other things that we covered is that whilst office and retail were recovering last year after the lockdown, until February, they had started seeing traction. It's unfortunate, but the second wave has now put a damper on all activity. And we are back to waiting for the next 3 to 6 months before activities will pick up. And of course, this will be dependent largely on how the vaccination rollout takes place. And hopefully that, we won't see any more big waves coming in, which will force all of us to put down our activities. The important thing was also is that, East India, because of the nature of the activities and the environment, did not see the kind of migration that we saw in other parts of the country. And that's why it has been relatively secluded and protected from any kind of delays or, the pain points that the construction sector has seen. One important thing that was also highlighted is that category A assets, which includes basically IT parks, industrial parks, the kind of offices that are built, these need to be completed quickly because these operate on a rental model. So the entire model has been developed before. So that's, and a lot of them are driven by the occupier needs. So that is why these asset classes typically assume importance, and they need to be finished much faster than other asset classes, which are basically different types of housing models. The second homes are also becoming very popular, especially with the middle class. And they are moving away from just, distant suburbs or semi-urban locations near larger cities like Kolkata to actually destinations which are holiday destinations, where people are looking at not just staying there or not just visiting, but actually staying. And now, thanks to the work from anywhere concept, that this is becoming possible, where, like Manab pointed out, that these are not becoming just second homes, are probably first homes for a lot of people. There has been a huge mismatch between demand and supply for senior citizens. The supply is woefully inadequate. And if there is a focus that is given on this particular asset class, there is a good, scope for business as well as to make profits. One of the things that we have seen is that warehousing, of course, has been, especially in the Eastern markets, has been seeing demand. And I think this is largely because of the fact that the rollout of the GST and other incentives that the government provided, that warehousing had been seeing consistent demand. But the year 2020 proved to be a watershed, where because of the demand that came in on online shopping and e-commerce, that boosted demand further. And the way the sector changed is that instead of looking at just smaller spaces, occupiers are now demanding larger spaces. So it's no longer just build small, but it's also build big and build quality, because most of these occupiers need a lot more facilities that go with them. In terms of infrastructure boosting and to sustain the entire real estate sector, land and clearances need to be provided faster at lower cost of capital. Hopefully, the lower cost of capital regime that we are seeing will extend for some more time. And this will help to boost our infrastructure, because the government of India is also very committed to that. Finally, one of the things that we've seen is that HNI clients also in the industrial warehousing sector, is that it's not just institutional investors who will drive demand or drive investments in especially Eastern India, but there is a lot of opportunity for HNI clients and even corporate clients, domestic corporate clients within the Eastern India's markets, because typically institutional investors are looking at very large assets, and that's true especially for other parts of the country. So at least in Eastern India, we can see that there will be plenty of opportunity for HNI clients. And finally, like Kaustuv shared that two sectors which could look pretty attractive for investors and even for developers alike is data centers and student housing. These are two asset classes that could be looked at as alternative asset classes. Varun did mention flexible workspaces, but we'll take that as part of the existing ecosystem that is there for office assets, whether you talk of IT parks or whether you talk of anything else. So flexible workspaces will probably become a subset of that. But data centers and student housing are asset classes that everyone could look forward to. So that, in a sense, wraps up whatever we've discussed so far. I'll just hand it over back to Sapna to see if there are any audience questions that we need to take at the moment.
Yes, I think you summarized it very well, Siddhart. The entire takeaway from this discussion, everyone spoke about their segment they are working on. Amit, Sarda, about IT Park now, how most of the occupiers would like to have a well-structured IT parks for their occupancies, for their businesses. Mr. Sanjeev Mehra about the retail, how retail is changing, and it is, it's not going anywhere. It's right there. And as soon as, we are able to get out of their home, first thing we are doing is hitting the shopping malls. So Manab again, talking about vacation homes, and now it's not only the HNIs or the rich, it is, even the middle class and the lower income groups are also looking at investing or for their end use. And Pratiik and Harsh, they spoke about warehousing, and Varun, you spoke about senior living. It is becoming one big chunk of real estate developers' portfolio, in fact, in a lot of parts of India. Pratiik, I have one question for you, which has come about warehousing, is that while we are talking about, yes, warehousing is, is on a growth trajectory, what is the challenges, if you can mention top 2 challenges for warehousing sector that you see?
Yeah, Sapna. So actually, warehousing has really changed in the last 2 years. It's really evolved as a very organized market now. So the biggest challenge now is to plan the correct layouts with the correct specification, which has become the most important part of it. Earlier, the market used
Okay, I think we have some network issue there. Harsh, you would like to take it from there?
Yeah, I think Pratiik got interrupted in between, but one of the biggest challenges that I feel is that, see, as I said, that the warehousing demand is a little bit tilted towards the online industry, the big companies. Now it's getting very, very competitive. I think how those are going to survive who are going to be more competitive in pricing as well as speed of delivery. This is what I think. Now, to achieve that, it has to be more technologically driven. And I feel that the future is about robotic, management of the warehouses. It has to be, the processes has to be more streamlined. I feel the loading, unloading time, the delivery process, this has to be all very highly technologically driven. And I feel those who can, understand this kind of a need and take the plunge into that kind of development in future warehousing with adapting to such technological need, I think though they are going to reap benefits because there's going to be a big surge in warehousing demand. This is for sure.
Okay. Pratiik, technology, Harsh mentioned that technology is one of the big challenges that warehousing will have to adopt. Your one quick challenge that you see warehousing facing? I think we have again lost, but as for Kaustuv, yeah, Pratiik, you're back with us. Okay, internet is
He's having some problems here.
We are talking of technology, and so here we are.
Is it audible?
Yes. Short and crisp, if you can.
Okay, so yeah, so technology is absolutely one of the challenges that I was trying to mention.
I think the panchayat that he's under needs to be revisited.
Okay, so we are facing technical challenges here, but as Kaustuv, the Savills report says that demand for warehousing is going to remain strong in 2021, and I believe all these other asset classes are going to become one big part of most developers' portfolio. So thank you so much, everyone, for sharing your views and sharing your experiences in your own segments. Probably we'll take all these questions offline. We will also be featuring this discussion in our magazine. So thank you so much for being here with us and sharing your views and being part of this session. Thank you so much.